Welcome back to Culture Bite. I'm Kevin, and yesterday the first episode of She-Hulk starring Tatiana Maslany aired, and I'm here to give you a breakdown of what happened and little Easter eggs I noticed while watching. The episode begins with the Marvel Studios intro, now updated with Jane Foster, Lady Thor, and Shang-Chi now is in the M in replacement of Moon Knight. The episode begins with Jennifer Walter speaking to the camera, practicing her final statement. As it slowly backs away, we can see she is speaking to her best friend Nikki, played by Ginger Gonzaga, and Dennis Borowski, which is played by David Matthews. If you take a look around Jen's office, you can see tons of UCLA merch, and she has 2 degrees from UCLA. So this definitely does take place in California. We hear Nikki discuss how Jennifer Walters was handpicked to go up against GLK&H. We know that GLK&H stands for Goodman, Lieber, Klutzenberg, and Holloway, which is the last names of Martin Goodman, which founded Atlas Comics, which is now Marvel Comics, Lieber, which is actually Stan Lee's real last name, and Klutzenberg is Jack Kirby's real last name as well. And Holloway is a gentleman that we have seen in the trailers that hires She-Hulk to be the attorney for the superhero division that they create. Nikki hints to knowing that Jennifer is a Hulk, as she says, if it doesn't go our way, you can just Hulk out, as Jennifer tells her, you're the only one I told. As they are walking out of Jen's office, she stops and walks back to the camera and starts to speak with the audience. She-Hulk is the first to break the fourth wall in the comics, and we did get a hint that this would happen in the show, but she stops us to let us know her origin story. She tells us it was a few months ago when she was driving with her cousin Bruce, which Mark Ruffalo does show up here, and he starts to explain what happened to his arm and why he is back in banner form. He must know that there must be many questions around that. He explains that he made this device that is able to keep himself in human form. He notices that she eats Cheetos with chopsticks to not get all the cheesy powder on herself. And she says, you're not the only genius in the family, as he corrects her and says there's also Chet, which I checked, and there's nothing really about Chet, so sorry, Chet. Then we get a theory from Jennifer about Captain America dying a virgin, basically, which is something that has debated amongst fans as well. But we do find out the answer to this in the post-credit scene, but as they are having their conversation, they are stopped by Sicarian's ship, which does look very similar to the Grandmaster ship from Thor Ragnarok. We find out that this ship is just a messenger, as it has a message for Bruce. Now, this could be the Grandmaster or could be Hulk's son, possibly, but as an attempt to stop, Jennifer swerves off the road and they crash. As she's exiting the vehicle, she conveniently gets cut on her arm. She attempts to save her cousin Bruce, which is bleeding everywhere, and he conveniently bleeds on her open cut as he tells her to go away. He even calls the device on his arm the inhibitor, which he says stopped working. As Jennifer starts to look at her arms, you can see her veins start to turn green, as we can see a blurry reflection of She-Hulk as she roars. And since Bruce's inhibitor device has been damaged, he starts to change as well. Next scene, we see Jennifer randomly waking up in a field, making her way towards the bar called Ideal Sports Bar. And yes, this is a real bar in Atlanta, Georgia. Jennifer sneaks past the bouncer and goes around the back. As she makes her way to the ladies' bathroom, you can see a QR code with the words Ladies Nights. And if you scan that QR code, it will take you to the first issue of She-Hulk, which you can read for free. Isn't that a treat? As Jen is in the bathroom cleaning herself up, a group of women walk in and decide to help her out and give her some shoes and a pink coat. Next scene, we see that Jen is outside and a few men start to harass her, as we can slowly hear a heartbeat, as her eyes turn green and she transforms to She-Hulk and roars at them. Then Bruce jumps in and takes her out. In the next scene, we see Jen waking up on a tropical resort of sorts, as she can see a Led Zeppelin shirt has been put out for her, which we know Tony Stark was a big fan of. As she walks out of her room, I see 2 big Easter eggs. One is the helmet Hulk wore during his battles on Sakaar, and another is the helmet that Ultron first used when we had that creepy monologue in Avengers Age of Ultron. Jennifer goes down to the basement and discovers that Bruce is back in Smart Hulk form, and he tells her that they are in Mexico, which I think is where Eddie Brock and Venom were in Spider-Man No Way Home. He tells her that this is where he spent his time during the blip to get Smart Hulk. And he explains that Tony Stark is the one who built it for him and told him it was alone, and one day he would swing by and take it back. Damn, doesn't that just hit you in the feels? He asks her if she is okay, and she is in shock that she almost hit a spacecraft. And Hulk explains it's a Sakarian A-class carrier craft that they are trying to deliver a message and that he needs to get to the bottom of it. But like, didn't the ship just like leave them after they cause an accident? They didn't think about helping or anything. Nice, on a hit and run. This is when she comes to the realization that she is a Hulk, and he tells her that she got a lethal dose of gamma radiation, but he starts to explain that Bruce and Jen are able to synthesize gamma radiation, and he used her blood to completely heal his arm, and now he can be his fully integrated Hulk self, which she calls Smug Hulk, and makes fun that he endorses himself as Smart Hulk. After he analyzes her blood, he completely destroys her blood samples. He explains that it's dangerous to keep around, even though in the Incredible Hulk movie, there are tons of blood samples left behind. So what are you going to do about that? He starts to explain to her that this is her life now and she feels a strong urge for pancakes. He tells her that this is a multi-year journey she is about to embark on as he whips out the syllabus for being a Hulk. He said that the first priority is to control when she turns. He tells her that these events are triggered by distressed emotional states, and she says to put on a Pixar movie. And she even mentions the movie Inside Out. I see you, Disney, during doing that promotion. And she mentions that Bing Bong jumps off the wagon, and you can see that Bruce isn't okay with that scene, and tells her that he needs to focus, and tells her the triggers are anger and fear. As he begins the machine up, the machines start up, and Jen is running around frantically panicking around the chamber as the saw blades close in on her. She transforms into She-Hulk and rips off the door. I just love this whole interaction as he tells her easy girl and does like a little cat purr, but come to find out she is conscious. And Bruce asks if she even has like another person in there, and says that he is jealous because she doesn't have anyone to fight with for control. And she explains for the first time it was so intense that she doesn't remember what happened, but now it has settled in. But he explains she still needs to control when she turns. Jennifer asks, how does he do it? And he says, usually he falls out of a jet, like in The Incredible Hulk, next punched by a robot, which I thought of the time when Tony and Hulk went head to head and he knocked him out. Then he mentioned when Natasha Romanoff would sing him a lullaby. Then he mentions to her when he changed to Hulk for 2 years straight, which she is totally not okay with. But he tells her that she can't be emotional, that regular anger could mean death and destruction. And when people see her as a monster, that never goes away, as he knows from experience. He tells her about dialectical behavior therapy, which I think we saw him practice back in The Incredible Hulk, and tells her it's all a science and not spiritual. Bruce used a blowhorn on Jen to wake her up, and we start seeing a few scenes. We see Bruce tell her to reinforce her furniture as they practice yoga. He tells her she needs 2 wardrobes, one for Jen and another when she hulks out, and he puts her onto spandex. Then teaches her about the boulder toss as he just casually throws it. Then it's Jen's turn and she manages to throw it further than Hulk, but he just gets upset and tosses a boulder into space. We then see them jump together. She even shows him up when she uses one arm when they're doing yoga, a ground pound together, but she shows him off again, and this is when he pushes her off the ledge. He teaches her all this to protect herself and tells her one of the benefits of being a Hulk is that you can drink as much as you can and get all the buzz. As we can get the next scene of Jennifer asking if Bruce built the bar by himself, and he says Tony helped, but mostly drank and complained about Steve Rogers. And you can see that both Bruce and Tony engraved their initials on the bar. This is when Jen wants to know when she can go back to her life, as Bruce tells her being a superhero is a trial by fire, but she doesn't want to be a superhero, and explains that she has more control over her emotions because she doesn't want to be represented by just her emotions, as she slowly changes, but comes to find out she can do this all on her own, and even Bruce is confused. They start to get into an argument, and she reiterates that she doesn't want to be a superhero and join a secret government contract team. Yes, the Avengers. And she attempts to leave. Bruce stops her, and she changes into She-Hulk and punches him in the face. They start to throw down. And then he even uses his signature Hulk clap and starts to yell at her and asks why wouldn't she listen to someone that has been through it. Then Jen tries to clap back, but nothing happens. But as she starts to continue to clap, it actually starts to do something and put Hulk down. But he's not down for the count. He gets up and goes after her, even throws her, and they both roar at each other and run at each other and end up rolling down into Bruce's bar and destroys it. Jen helps fixes Bruce's bar as Bruce says she can go back to being a lawyer, as she turns to the camera and says he doesn't mean that. And this could be the first time Jen is breaking the fourth wall. Jen carves her name next to Tony's as they eat Cheetos with chopsticks. He tells her that his door is never closed, and we catch back up with the present Jennifer that tells us that she's told her family, she's told Nikki, and now we know. We are then next in the courtroom, and Holloway is looking over at Jen as Dennis told her not to mess up, and as she's called to give her final statement, Titania, played by Jamel Jamil, bursts through the wall, and Nikki tells her to hawk out and do a civil duty. I just love when Titania asks who she is, and she says Jennifer Walters, attorney at law, and then we just get this mashed together promo fight with like some music in the background, and then she reverts back into Jen form and attempts to give her final statement. Then we finally get the end credits scene where we can see Jen and Hulk together again at the bar drinking, as she says Steve Rogers did so much for his country and he never got to experience sex. And she even mentions how great America's ass truly was. And then Hulk interrupts and says Steve Rogers is not a virgin. He lost his virginity on a USO tour in 1943. And we see that Jen isn't actually drunk and yells that Captain America fuck, which you can assume what that word is.